The alarms rang through the Coalition Deep Space Monitoring Station like angry birds. Commander Hyunsik rushed from his quarters to the control room, his bare feet slapping against the cold metal floor. The red lights flashed across the walls, making everything look like it was covered in blood. "What's happening?" Hyunsik asked as he reached the main console. Navigation Officer Tae-jun was bent over his screen, his face pale and confused. "Sir, we're getting signals from the Forbidden Zone," Tae-jun said, his voice shaking slightly. "But that's impossible. Nothing lives in there." Hyunsik felt his stomach drop. The Forbidden Zone was a place no one talked about anymore. 50 years ago, the Great Purge had happened there. The humans had been completely destroyed, wiped out from every corner of space. The zone was declared off-limits after that too, dangerous for anyone to enter. "Show me," Hyunsik ordered. The main screen lit up with wave patterns and numbers. Tae-jun pointed to a series of blips that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. "The signals are coming from Grid Sector 7 Alpha, deep inside the zone, but sir, that area has gravitational fields that crush ships into metal soup." Hyunsik stared at the patterns. Something about them looked familiar, but he couldn't place what it was. "Can you clean up the signal? Make it clearer?" Tae-jun's fingers danced over his controls. The static cleared a little, and suddenly voices came through the speakers. They were speaking in a language that made Hyunsik's blood freeze. "Patrol 7. All clear on Sector 9. Fuel levels holding steady. Maintain radio silence until next check." The voices stopped, leaving. Only the hum of the station's machines. Everyone in the control room stared at each other with wide eyes. "That was human language," whispered Dr. So-young, the station's language expert. She had been standing quietly in the corner, but now she stepped forward. "I'm sure of it. That was definitely human speech patterns." "Impossible," Hyunsik said, but his voice sounded weak even to himself. "There are no humans left. They were all killed in the Purge." Dr. So-young shook her head. "I've studied every known language in the galaxy. What we just heard was human military code. Old style, maybe 50 years old, but definitely human." Hyunsik felt like the floor was moving under his feet. Humans had been the most dangerous species in the galaxy before the Purge. They were smart, aggressive, and they multiplied faster than any other race. The Coalition had been formed partly to deal with the human problem. When the humans were finally destroyed, everyone breathed easier. "Could it be a recording?" asked Tae-jun. "Maybe. Some old human ship sending out automatic messages?" "No," Dr. So-young said firmly. "The conversation patterns were too natural. Someone was actually talking to someone else. These are live transmissions." The control room fell silent, except for the steady beep of the monitoring equipment. Hyunsik walked to the big window that looked out into space. In the distance, he could see the dark area where the Forbidden Zone began. Stars seemed to bend and twist at its edges like space itself was broken there. "Sir, there's more," Tae-jun said quietly. "The signals aren't random. They're following military patrol patterns. Someone is organized out there." Hyunsik turned, back to the group. "How long have these signals been coming in?" 3 days, sir, but they're getting stronger. Whatever is sending them might be getting closer to the zone's edge." Dr. So-young moved to her own console and started typing rapidly. "If I can record more of these transmissions, I might be able to figure out what they're saying exactly. The encryption is old, but not impossible to break." "Do it," Hyunsik ordered. "But keep this quiet. I don't want word getting out until we know more." For the next several hours, the team worked in silence. More signals came through, short bursts of human voices speaking in their strange, clipped, military style. Dr. So-young worked her magic on the translations, and slowly a picture began to form. "They're talking about patrol routes," she reported. "Supply lines, guard shifts. This isn't just one ship, Commander. This sounds like a whole military operation." Hyunsik felt sweat forming on his forehead despite the station's cool air. "A human military operation. In the Forbidden Zone. After 50 years. Sir," Tae-jun interrupted. "I'm getting energy readings from the same area. Big ones. Something massive is moving around in there." The main screen changed to show energy patterns. Huge spikes of power moved through the dark space of the zone like great beasts swimming in an ocean. Whatever was producing those readings had to be enormous. Ship-sized, Hyun-sik asked. Bigger, sir. Much bigger. Some of these readings suggest something the size of a space station, but it's moving. Hyun-sik knew he had to report this to Coalition Command. The problem was no one would believe him. Humans were extinct. Everyone knew that. The official history book said so. The Viridian Empire, who led the coalition, had made sure of that. But what if the history books were wrong? Dr. So Young, I want you to keep working on those translations. Taejun, monitor all frequencies. If these signals are real, I want to know everything about them. Sir, Dr. So Young said softly. What if this is real? What if humans are still alive out there? Hyun-sik looked around at his small team. They were all thinking the same thing. If humans had survived the Great Purge, if they had been hiding in the Forbidden Zone for 50 years, what had they been doing all this time? What had they become? Then, Hyun-sik said slowly, we might be the first people to discover the biggest secret in the galaxy. As if responding to his words, another transmission crackled through the speakers. This time, the voice was clearer, stronger. This is Captain Min-ho of the Defiant Dawn. All stations report ready. The time for hiding is almost over. The transmission cut off, leaving the control room in stunned silence. Somewhere in the dark, twisted space of the Forbidden Zone, humans were not just alive. They were preparing for something. Hyun-sik stared out at the stars and wondered if his small monitoring station had just become the most important place in the galaxy. 3 weeks had passed since the first human signals, and Commander Hyun-sik felt like he was going crazy. Every day brought more transmissions from the Forbidden Zone, voices speaking in human language, energy readings that showed massive ships, moving through space, and always the same message from Coalition Command. Equipment malfunction. Humans are extinct. Stop wasting resources. Hyun-sik sat in his office, staring at the rejection letter on his screen. Admiral Vextar of the Viridian Empire had been very clear. There would be no investigation, no ship sent to check the signals. The matter was closed. A soft knock on his door made him look up. Dr. So Young entered, followed by Taejun and 3 other crew members. They all had the same determined look in their eyes. Sir, Dr. So Young said, we've been talking. We know what you're thinking about doing. Hyun-sik raised an eyebrow. Do you? You want to go there yourself, said Pilot Da-eun, stepping forward. She was young, maybe 25, with the steady hands that made her the best pilot on the station. You want to take a ship into the Forbidden Zone and see what's really out there. That would be against direct orders, Hyun-sik said carefully. So, was listening to those signals after command told us to stop, said Engineer Woo-bin. He was a big man with gentle eyes who could fix anything that broke on the station. But we kept listening anyway. Taejun nodded. Sir, my grandmother used to tell me stories about humans before the purge. She said they weren't monsters like the history books claim. She said they were explorers, inventors, people who never gave up no matter how bad things got. Dr. So Young placed a data pad on Hyun-sik's desk. I've been working on those transmissions day and night. The humans out there aren't just surviving, Commander. They're organized. They have families. I heard children's voices yesterday, laughing and playing games. Hyun-sik felt his heart skip. Children? Yes, sir. The humans didn't just survive the purge. They've been building something out there for 50 years. Engineer Woo-bin stepped forward. Sir, I've been studying the zone's gravitational fields. I think I can modify the research ship Pathfinder to handle the stress. It won't be comfortable, but we could make it through. The radiation alone would kill us, Hyun-sik pointed out. Not if we reroute power from non-essential systems to the shields, Woo-bin replied. I've run the numbers. It's dangerous, but possible. Da-eun grinned. And I know how to fly through gravity fields that would turn most pilots into paste. My grandmother taught me some tricks before she died. Hyun-sik looked around at his small team. They were all volunteers, all willing to risk their careers, their lives to find the truth. You understand that if we do this, we'll probably be court-martialed when we get back? If we get back, Better than spending the rest of our lives wondering, Dr. So Young said simply. 2 days later, the research ship Pathfinder slipped away from the monitoring station during the night shift. Hyun-sik had left a message for his replacement, explaining that they had gone to investigate a possible equipment malfunction in the outer system. It would buy them maybe a week before anyone realized where they had really gone. The ship was small but well built. Woo-bin had worked for 3 days straight, adding extra shielding and modifying the power systems. The Pathfinder looked like a metal turtle now, covered in additional armor plates and sensor equipment. Approaching the zone boundary, Da-eun called from the pilot's seat. Her hands moved smoothly over the controls as she guided them toward the invisible line where normal space ended and the forbidden zone began. Dr. Yoon-ji, a quantum physicist who had joined them at the last minute, watched her instruments with fascination. The gravitational readings are incredible. It's like space itself is folded and twisted into knots. Natural phenomenon? Hyun-sik asked. I don't think so, Yoon-ji replied, frowning at her screen. The patterns are too regular, too organized. It's almost like someone designed these gravity fields on purpose. As a barrier, Dr. So Young said, understanding immediately, to keep people out. Da-eun's voice came through the intercom, tight with concentration. Hold on, everyone, we're going in. The Pathfinder shuddered as it crossed into the zone. The stars outside the windows seemed to bend and twist, creating strange patterns of light. The ship's hull groaned under the stress of the gravitational forces pulling it in different directions. Shields holding, Woo-bin reported, but we're using power fast. I can give you maybe 6 hours before we have to turn back. Make them count, Hyun-sik said. For the first hour, they saw nothing but twisted space and radiation storms. Then Taejun's instruments started picking up something new. Sir, I'm getting those human signals again. Much stronger now. And there's something else. Large objects moving through the gravity fields like they don't even notice them. On screen, Hyun-sik ordered. The main display showed a view of space that made everyone gasp. In the distance, barely visible through the radiation and twisted, light, huge shapes moved through the void. They were too far away to see clearly, but they were definitely artificial. Ships. Enormous ships unlike anything in the Coalition database. How big? Hyun-sik asked quietly. The largest one is maybe 2 kilometers long, Taejun replied, his voice full of awe. Sir, that's bigger than most Coalition battleships. Dr. So Young was listening to her communications equipment with headphones. Suddenly she looked up with wide eyes. Commander, you need to hear this. She put the transmission through the ship's speakers. A human voice came through, clear and strong. Patrol Delta returning to base. All sectors clear. No Coalition ships detected in outer perimeter. Another voice answered, younger sounding, maybe female. Roger, Delta. Admiral Kyung-soo wants all patrols back by 1800 hours. Big meeting tonight. The first voice responded with something that made Hyun-sik's blood run cold. Think it's time for the next phase? Think we're finally going home? Home, Dr. So Young whispered. They think of somewhere else as home, not the zone. Da-eun's voice came over the intercom, excited. Sir, I'm picking up a beacon, automated signal giving navigation instructions. It's in human language. Follow it, Hyun-sik ordered. The Pathfinder turned deeper into the zone, following the beacon's guidance through the maze of gravitational fields. As they traveled, more signals came through. Human voices talking about shift changes, supply deliveries, patrol routes. It sounded like a military base. Sir, Woo-bin called from engineering. Power levels at 50%. We need to make a decision soon. Before Hyun-sik could answer, Taejun shouted from his station. Contact. Something's coming toward us. Fast. On the screen, a sleek shape emerged from the twisted space ahead of them. It was a ship, but like nothing they had ever seen. It moved through the gravity fields like a fish through water, completely unaffected by the forces that were slowly tearing the Pathfinder apart. It's scanning us, Taejun reported. Full spectrum analysis. The alien ship took up position directly, in front of them, blocking their path. It was beautiful in a deadly way, all sharp edges and smooth curves. Weapons ports were clearly visible along its hull, Dr. So Young's equipment crackled to life. A human voice spoke to them directly. Coalition vessel, you are in restricted space. State your purpose or prepare to be destroyed. Hyun-sik took a deep breath and activated the communication system. This was the moment that would change everything. This is Commander Hyun-sik of the Coalition Deep Space Monitoring Division. We've been receiving your transmissions. We know you're human. We want to talk. A long silence followed. Then the voice came back. Different now. Surprised. You're not military? No, we're scientists, researchers. We just want to understand. Another pause. Then, follow us. Do not deviate from our course or you will be destroyed. Welcome to the real history of the galaxy. The human ship was called the Defiant Dawn, and it was like nothing Hyun-sik had ever imagined. As the Pathfinder was guided into its docking bay, the Coalition team stared in amazement at technology that seemed decades ahead of anything they knew. The docking bay was huge, big enough to hold 20 ships the size of the Pathfinder. The walls were lined with weapons and tools that looked both familiar and completely alien. Everything had a sleek, deadly efficiency that spoke of people who had learned to survive in the harshest environment imaginable. Power down all weapons, and prepare for boarding, came the voice over their communication system. Any aggressive action will result in immediate termination. We don't have any weapons, Hyun-sik replied. We're a research vessel. We'll see about that. The docking process was smooth, handled by automated systems that locked onto the Pathfinder and drew it gently into position. As soon as they were secure, figures in strange armor appeared around their ship. The armor was black and silver, form-fitting, and moved like liquid metal when the wearers walked. That's not any armor design I've ever seen, whispered Engineer Wubin. The airlock opened, and the first human Hyun-sik had ever seen in person stepped aboard their ship. He was tall, maybe 40 years old, with cybernetic implants around his left eye and along his jaw. His presence filled the small airlock like a storm front. I'm Captain Minho, the man said, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. You're either very brave or very stupid to come here. Maybe both, Hyun-sik replied. I'm Commander Hyun-sik, this is my team. Captain Minho's enhanced eye glowed softly as he looked at each member of the Coalition group. No weapons, no recording devices. Interesting. You really are just researchers. We told you we were. People tell me lots of things, usually lies. Minho gestured toward the airlock. Come. There are people who want to meet you. People who have been waiting 50 years to tell the galaxy what really happened. The interior of the Defiant Dawn was a marvel of engineering. The corridors were wide and well lit, with walls that seemed to pulse with inner light. Crew members they passed were all human, but many had cybernetic enhancements. Some had metal arms. Others had computer implants in their skulls. All of them moved with the fluid precision of people who had spent years adapting to an environment that tried to kill them every day. How many of you are there? Dr. So Young asked as they walked. On this ship? 300, Minho replied. In the zone? That's a number for someone else to share. They entered a large room that looked like a command center. Screens showed views of space outside, but the space looked different from what they had seen. On the journey in, the gravitational distortions were gone, replaced by normal starfields. This is impossible, said Dr. Yoonji, staring at the displays. We're still in the zone, but space looks normal here. A woman's voice answered from across the room. That's because we learned to control it. Chief Engineer Soo Jin approached them, and Hyun-sik saw immediately that she was more machine than human. Her left arm was completely cybernetic, and cables ran from her skull to a portable computer unit on her belt. But her smile was warm and completely human. The gravitational fields aren't natural, Soo Jin explained. They're a defense system. We built them over 40 years of trial and error. The zone is our fortress, and we control who gets in and who gets out. You built it? Taejun asked, amazed. The whole zone? Not all of it. But the parts that matter, yes. We had to. It was the only way to stay hidden while we rebuilt. Captain Minho led them to another section of the ship. where the walls were lined with weapons that made Hyun-sik's blood run cold. Plasma cannons, particle beam projectors, and devices he couldn't even identify were mounted in neat rows. "Weapons," Officer Ji-woo, Min-ho called. A young woman turned from where she had been working on a massive cannon. Like the others, she had cybernetic enhancements, but hers were focused around her hands and eyes. When she looked at the coalition team, her enhanced vision system glowed softly. "These are our new friends from the coalition," Min-ho said. "Show them what we've been working on." Ji-woo smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. She gestured to the weapon she had been adjusting. "This is a Mark 7 plasma cannon. It can punch through any shield system currently used by coalition forces and turn a battleship into scrap metal in about 3 seconds. "That's impossible," Engineer Woobin said. "Coalition shields are the most advanced in the galaxy." "Coalition shields are based on technology that's 50 years old," Ji-woo replied. "We've had 50 years to improve on it. Want to see?" She activated a targeting system, and a holographic display showed a coalition battleship being hit by the plasma cannon. The ship's shields flared briefly, then collapsed. The ship itself simply evaporated. "Computer simulation, of course," Ji-woo added, "but the math is solid." As they continued the tour, the coalition team began to understand the true scope of what they were seeing. The humans hadn't just survived the purge. They had used their 50 years in the zone to advance their technology far beyond anything the rest of the galaxy possessed. "How is this possible?" Dr. Yoonji asked. "You've been isolated, cut off from all resources." "Isolation can be a gift," Captain Min-ho replied. "When you can't rely on anyone else, you learn to rely on yourself. When you can't buy new technology, you learn to build better technology. When everyone thinks you're dead, you're free to become something new." They reached what appeared to be a recreation area where off-duty crew members were relaxing. What struck Hyun-sik immediately was how normal they seemed. They were reading, playing games, talking quietly. Some were very young, people who had clearly been born after the purge. "Second-generation zone-born," Min-ho explained, following his gaze. "They've never seen normal space. To them, this is home." A child, maybe 10 years old, ran up to them. She had the same cybernetic enhancements as the adults, but scaled for her size. Her eyes were bright with curiosity. "Are you really from outside?" she asked. "From the coalition?" "Yes," Dr. So-young said gently. "We are. My teacher says the coalition thinks we're all dead. Is that true?" Before anyone could answer, Captain Min-ho knelt down to the child's level. "Subin, go find your parents. We'll talk about this later." The child nodded and ran off, but her question hung in the air like smoke. "She's right," Hyun-sik said quietly. "Everyone thinks humans are extinct." "Good," Min-ho replied, standing. "That's made our job easier." "What job?" Min-ho's expression grew hard. "The job of preparing for the day we reclaim our place in the galaxy." They were interrupted by an announcement over the ship's communication system. "All senior staff to the main briefing room. Priority 1. "That's us," Min-ho said. "Come on. I think it's time you met the Admiral." As they walked toward the briefing room, Hyun-sik felt a growing sense of unease. The humans had clearly been planning something for decades. Their technology was superior to anything the coalition possessed. Their organization was military precise, and they had been hidden in the one place no one would ever look for them. "Captain," he said quietly, "what exactly are you planning to do?" Min-ho stopped and looked at him with those enhanced eyes. "We're planning to go home, Commander. All of us. And if the coalition tries to stop us, they're going to discover that the galaxy's most dangerous species didn't go extinct 50 years ago. We just learned patience." The briefing room doors opened ahead of them, revealing a large space filled with humans in military uniforms. At the head of the room stood a figure that made Hyun-sik's breath catch in his throat. Admiral Kyung-soo was an older man, maybe 60, with more cybernetic enhancements than anyone they had seen yet. But it wasn't his appearance that was intimidating. It was the way everyone in the room looked at him with absolute loyalty and respect. "Welcome to the Forbidden Zone," the Admiral said. his voice carrying easily through the large room. I think it's time you learned what really happened 50 years ago and what we intend to do about it. The journey to New Sol took 6 hours through the twisted space of the zone, but to Hyun-sik it felt like traveling through a dream. The human escort ships moved through gravitational fields that should have crushed them, following paths that seemed to exist only for them. How do you navigate through this? He asked Captain Minho as they watched the space outside bend and twist. Practice, Minho replied simply. 50 years of practice and modifications. He tapped his cybernetic eye. Standard human vision can't see the safe paths through the gravity maze, but enhanced vision can. When they finally arrived at their destination, Hyun-sik forgot how to breathe. New Sol was built inside an asteroid so massive it was almost a small planet. But instead of being a rough cave carved from rock, it was a gleaming city of metal and glass that stretched for kilometers, in all directions. Population? Dr. So-young asked, staring at the city through the viewports. 12,000 humans, Admiral Kyung-soo said, joining them at the observation deck. Plus another 8,000 refugees from species the coalition claims never existed. Refugees? Taejun asked. You'll see. The docking facility was enormous, built to handle ships much larger than anything they had seen yet. As they walked through the arrival area, Hyun-sik saw his first non-human residents of New Sol. There were tall, crystalline beings he didn't recognize, small furry creatures with 6 arms and others that defied easy description. The Keth, Admiral Kyung-soo explained, noticing his stare. Officially extinct for 30 years. The Zephyrians, gone for 25 years. The Moth People, destroyed just 15 years ago. All of them victims of coalition expansion. Doctor, Yoonji stopped walking. You're saying the coalition has been lying about more than just humans? The coalition has been lying about everything, the Admiral replied. Every species they claim went extinct. Every war they say was necessary for peace. Every expansion they call defensive. All lies. They entered the city proper, and Hyun-sik felt like he was walking through the future. The buildings were tall and elegant, connected by bridges that arced through the air like frozen rainbows. Plants grew everywhere, creating gardens that shouldn't have been possible inside an asteroid. Hydroponics, explained Dr. Youngmi, the colony's chief scientist, as she joined their group. We had to learn to grow everything ourselves. No supply lines when you're officially dead. She was a small woman, maybe 50 years old, with cybernetic implants that seemed to interface directly with the city's computer systems. Cables ran from her skull to a portable unit, and her eyes glowed with data displays. Dr. Youngmi designed most of our technology, Admiral Kyung-soo said. She's the reason we survived the first 10 years. I had help, Dr. Youngmi said modestly. When you have to reinvent civilization from scratch, everyone becomes an expert in everything. They visited the manufacturing districts, where humans and aliens worked together to build technologies that looked like magic. Quantum computers the size of coins, weapons that bent space itself, ships that could travel faster than light without using any fuel the coalition would recognize. How is this possible? Engineer Woo-bin asked, staring at a machine that seemed to be creating metal from empty air. Necessity, Dr. Youngmi replied. When the coalition destroyed our worlds, we lost everything. No factories, no supply chains, no raw materials except what we could find in the zone. We had to learn to make everything from nothing. She showed them to her laboratory, where displays showed technological advances that made coalition science look primitive. Faster than light communication systems, artificial gravity generators the size of dinner plates, weapons that could destroy planets. We've also developed some interesting allies, Dr. Youngmi said, calling up a star map. Red dots marked the locations of hidden bases throughout the galaxy. Other species the coalition thought they destroyed. Survivors who've been watching and waiting just like us. Watching for what? Dr. So-young asked. Admiral Kyung-soo answered. For the right moment to reclaim our place in the galaxy. They were taken to the historical archives where the real story of the last 50 years was preserved. Hyun-sik watched video records that made his stomach turn. Coalition fleets destroying peaceful human colonies. civilians being executed simply for being human, children separated from their families and sent to re-education centers where they disappeared forever. The official coalition history says humans were aggressive, Admiral Kyung-soo explained as they watched the horrible footage. They say we were expanding too fast, taking over systems that belonged to other species. They say the purge was necessary to preserve galactic peace. But that's not what happened, Dr. So-young said, understanding beginning to dawn on her face. No. What happened was that human technology was advancing faster than the Viridian Empire could control. We were developing, faster than light travel, advanced AI systems, weapons that could have changed the balance of power in the galaxy. The Viridians couldn't allow that. Admiral Kyung-soo changed the display to show technical specifications. Every major technology the Coalition has claimed to develop in the last 50 years was stolen from human research. Faster than light, communication, advanced shield systems, quantum computers. All human inventions that the Viridians took after they destroyed our worlds. The Coalition was built on theft, Dr. Young-mi added bitterly. They killed us and then sold our innovations as their own achievements. Hyun-sik felt sick. How many people knew the truth? Very few. The Viridian Empire made sure of that. They rewrote the history books, destroyed the evidence, and built their new galactic order on the lie that humans were monsters who had to be stopped. They spent hours going through the evidence, video records, technical specifications, personal accounts from survivors. By the end, Hyun-sik understood that everything he had been taught about galactic history was wrong. What about the other coalition species? Taejun asked. Do they know? Some suspect, Admiral Kyung-soo replied. But the Viridians control the information networks, the education systems, the historical records. Most species genuinely believe the official version of events. Dr. Young-mi activated a new display that showed current coalition fleet movements, which brings us to our current problem. Long-range sensors show massive fleet buildups in 3 sectors. The Viridians are preparing for something big. Preparing for what? Hyun-sik asked. We think they know about New Seoul, Admiral Kyung-soo said grimly. Someone may have detected our signals, tracked them back to their source. If they attack us here, they'll try to finish what they started 50 years ago. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. After 50 years of hiding and building, the humans might be discovered just as they were preparing to reveal themselves. How long do we have? Captain Minho asked. Days, maybe weeks, Dr. Young-mi replied. The fleets are still assembling, but when they move, they'll move fast. Admiral Kyung-soo turned to face the coalition team. Which brings us to, you. You came here looking for the truth and now you found it. The question is, what are you going to do with it? What do you mean? Hyun-sik asked. You have a choice. You can return to coalition space and report that you found nothing. Live your lives knowing the truth but keeping it secret. Or you can help us prepare for what's coming. Help you how? By sharing what you know about coalition military systems, fleet movements, tactical doctrines. In exchange, we'll show you technologies that could revolutionize your understanding of science. Dr. Yoon-ji stepped forward. And if we refuse, Admiral? Kyung-soo's expression didn't change. Then you'll be held here as honored guests until the current crisis is resolved. We can't risk you revealing our location to the coalition, even accidentally. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the city's systems. Hyun-sik looked around at his team, seeing the same thoughts in their eyes. They had come looking for the truth about mysterious signals. Instead, they had found the biggest secret in galactic history. How many ships do you have? He asked finally. Enough, Admiral Kyung-soo replied. The question is whether we'll need to use them. Alarms suddenly began ringing throughout the city. Dr. Young-mi's cybernetic systems flared to life as she interfaced with the defense network. Sir, she said, her voice tight with tension. Long-range sensors are detecting incoming ships, coalition, signatures, 300 vessels approaching from multiple vectors. Admiral Kyung-soo's face hardened. How long until they reach the zone's edge? 18 hours. The Admiral turned to Hyun-sik and his team. Looks like you get to make your Choice sooner than expected. The coalition is coming, and they're not coming to talk. Through the city's windows, Hyunsik could see human ships beginning to move. Sleek, deadly vessels emerging from hidden docking bays, taking positions throughout the asteroid city. After 50 years of hiding, the humans were preparing to fight. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity had become in those 50 years of exile. The coalition fleet was magnificent and terrible. 300 warships arranged in perfect battle formation, their hulls gleaming in the twisted light of the Forbidden Zone's edge. At their head flew the massive dreadnought Eternal Victory, flagship of Supreme Admiral Vextar himself. Hyunsik watched from the command center of New Seoul as the enemy fleet took position just outside the zone's gravitational barriers. The humans around him worked with calm efficiency, preparing for a battle they had spent 50 years planning. "Open a channel," Admiral Kyung-soo ordered. The main screen filled with the image of Supreme Admiral Vextar. He was viridian, tall, and pale with the cold, calculating eyes of someone who had spent his life giving orders that resulted in death. When he saw Admiral Kyung-soo, his expression shifted from confidence to something that might have been fear. "Impossible," Vextar whispered. "You're dead. I watched your worlds burn." "Disappointed?" Admiral Kyung-soo replied calmly. "We survived, Vextar, all of us, and we remember everything." Vextar's composure returned quickly. "Surrender immediately. All human personnel will be transported to processing centers. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your installation." "Processing centers," Admiral Kyung-soo repeated. "Like the ones you used 50 years ago, where millions of humans disappeared forever?" The humans were an aggressive species that threatened galactic peace. The purge was necessary for the greater good. "The greater good," Dr. Youngmi said bitterly from her station. "Is that what you call genocide now?" Vextar's eyes found her on the screen. "Dr. Youngmi, you're supposed to be dead too, along with your dangerous research. My research helped us survive your attempt to wipe us out, and it's going to help us make sure you never try it again. You have 12 hours to surrender," Vextar announced. "After that, we will enter the zone and destroy everything we find." "Come ahead," Admiral Kyung-soo said simply. "We'll be waiting." The transmission cut off, leaving the command center in tense silence. Then Admiral Kyung-soo turned to his staff. "All ships to battle stations. Activate the zone defenses. Send word to our allies. It's time." Over the next few hours, Hyunsik watched in amazement as the human defense plan unfolded. Ships that had been hidden throughout the asteroid city launched and took positions in the gravitational maze, but these weren't the only defenders. From hidden bases throughout the zone, more ships appeared. Not just human vessels, but ships from all the species the Coalition claimed were extinct. Keth crystal ships that could phase in and out of normal space. Cephirian fighters that moved like living things. Moth people carriers that could split into dozens of smaller attack craft. "How many ships do you have?" Taejun asked, staring at the tactical displays. "Enough," Captain Minho replied. He had been given command of the Defiant Dawn and 3 other human warships. "The Coalition is about to learn that reports of our death were greatly exaggerated. When the Coalition fleet entered the zone, everything went wrong for them immediately. The gravitational fields that the humans had learned to navigate as easily as walking on solid ground caught the Coalition ships like flies in honey. Formations broke apart as ships were pulled in different directions by invisible forces. Phase 1 complete, Dr. Youngmi reported. Their formation is disrupted, beginning Phase 2. The human ships moved through the gravity maze like ghosts, appearing suddenly to strike at confused Coalition vessels before disappearing again into the twisted space. Captain Dong-hyun's stealth frigates picked off isolated ships, while Commander Haewon's fighter squadron swarmed around the larger vessels like angry insects, but it was the weapons that truly shocked the Coalition forces. The plasma cannons that Jiwoo had demonstrated proved to be devastatingly effective. Coalition shields, which had been considered impenetrable, collapsed under the first hits. Ships that had seemed invulnerable were reduced to scrap metal in seconds. Impossible. Vextar's voice came over the communication channels. Our shields are the most advanced in the galaxy. Your shields are based on 50-year-old human technology, Admiral Kyung-soo replied. We've had 5 decades to improve on our own work. The battle raged for 6 hours, but it was clear from the beginning that the coalition had no chance. Their ships were designed for fighting in normal space, not in the gravitational nightmare of the zone. Their weapons couldn't penetrate human shields. Their tactics were useless against an enemy that could appear and disappear at will. But the EIR humans had one more surprise. Activate the reality anchors, Admiral Kyung-soo ordered. Dr. Young-mi's hands moved over her controls. Anchors activated, beginning space-time manipulation. Around the coalition fleet, space itself began to change. The gravitational fields that had been merely disruptive became actively hostile. Ships found themselves caught in gravity wells that compressed their hulls like tin cans. Others were stretched apart by tidal forces that no amount of structural reinforcement could resist. What are you doing? Vextar screamed over the communication channels. 50 years ago, you trapped us in this gravitational maze, Admiral Kyung-soo replied. We learned to control it. The zone isn't our prison anymore, Vextar, it's our weapon. Reality warped around coalition ships. Some were crushed into balls of twisted metal. Others were torn apart atom by atom. A few simply disappeared, folded out of normal space-time, and sent to places where physics worked differently. In less than an hour, the coalition's massive fleet was reduced to a handful of severely damaged ships clustered around Vextar's flagship. The Eternal Victory was the only vessel still capable of fighting, and even it was showing signs of serious damage. Surrender, Admiral Kyung-soo said simply. On the screen, Vexitar looked like a broken man. His perfect battle formation was gone. His invincible fleet was scrap metal. His carefully maintained lie about human extinction was shattered forever. The coalition will never accept this, he said weakly. Other fleets will come. Larger fleets. Let them come, Admiral Kyung-soo replied. We'll be ready, and next time we won't be fighting alone. As if to emphasize his point, new contacts appeared on the tactical displays. Ships from across the galaxy, belonging to species that the coalition had thought were safely under their control. The battle in the zone had been broadcast across all frequencies, and the galaxy had seen the truth about both human survival and coalition lies. Revolution, Dr. So Young whispered, watching the displays. You've started a galactic revolution. We've finished one, Admiral Kyung-soo corrected. The revolution started 50 years ago when the coalition decided that genocide was an acceptable tool of politics. It just took us this long to be ready to fight back properly. Vextar's surrender was broadcast throughout coalition space. Along with it went the complete historical records that the humans had preserved, showing the truth about the Purge and the coalition's systematic destruction of inconvenient species. The effect was immediate and devastating. On dozens of worlds, coalition governments found themselves facing angry populations who had learned that their entire understanding of history was built on lies. Military units refused orders. Planetary governors declared independence. The coalition's carefully constructed empire began to collapse. 3 months later, Hyun-sik stood in the same command center where the battle had been fought, but everything was different now. The Forbidden Zone had been opened to peaceful exploration, revealing wonders that human ingenuity had created in the galaxy's most hostile environment. New Seoul had become the capital of the reformed Galactic Council, where representatives from hundreds of species worked together to build a new kind of galactic government, one based on truth instead of lies, cooperation instead of domination. Any regrets? Admiral Kyung-soo asked, joining him at the observation window. About helping you? No, Hyun-sik replied. About believing the lies for so long? Yes. We all believed them. The coalition was very good at making people believe what they wanted them to believe. Through the window they could see human ships working alongside vessels from dozens of other species. Former enemies building something new together. What happens now? Hyun-sik asked. Now we do what humans have always done, Admiral Kyung-soo replied. We explore. We build. We push the boundaries of what's possible. But this time, we won't do it alone. A new ship was approaching the station, sleek and beautiful, flying under the flag of the Reformed Council. It carried ambassadors from species that had been hiding in the dark corners of the galaxy, waiting for the Coalition's reign of terror to end. The age of hiding is over, Admiral Kyung-soo said. For all of us. Hyun-sik nodded, thinking about the long journey that had brought them here. It had started with mysterious signals from a place where nothing was supposed to live. It had ended with the discovery that the galaxy's greatest victims had become its greatest hope. The whispers in the Forbidden Zone hadn't been myths or ghost stories. They had been the sound of humanity refusing to die, preparing for the day when they could reclaim their place among the stars. That day had finally come.